Hey yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Thanks for tuning in and supporting the channel. I got a replay in here from Nonamanadus in his Jagd Tiger German Tier 9 TD, Casemate TD. And he has loaded in here to Pilsen. Originally I was just going to give him a little bit of feedback on this replay that he sent me, but as I looked at it I realized it was actually a pretty good follow-up to my Casemate discussion I recently had on how to assault TD, and he does it at Tier 9 with the JT. I did it with the 12244, which is rather zippy, has a pretty fast reload, but we've got a larger, a little bit more heavily armored example for you right here. I discussed this quite a bit in my videos, that even if you're driving a Casemate TD, the whole second line sniper sitting back and waiting thing, it has its moments. There are times when it's appropriate. But in general, because of the way World of Tanks is played, in that it is a hit point reduction game, and early advantages tend to snowball, that means that you have to get your gun in the game no matter what type of tank you are driving. So camping cap, just because you're in a TD and TD's sitting in the back, is the wrong idea. And I showed you that with the 12244, but now we have Nonamanadus, and he has decided to go to the west side in his JT and immediately brings this tank up, fairly heavily armored, shoots fairly quickly, and gets it up near the front. Now notice he just doesn't go piling into everything. What's the disadvantage of the Casemate? Well, as you well know, it doesn't have a turret, which means it has a hard time fighting multiple axes. So it is incumbent upon him to A, get his gun up into the game, but not get overextended and shot in the side and tracked and wiped out before he can do anything. So as he moves up into these factories at Pilsen, you can see that he does have to be careful, but the gun is there. The other thing about big TDs like this is they can influence the battle simply by existing there at the front and the giant gun. Few people want to challenge the gun. They don't want to take the big hit. You can see now he's bowling forward a little bit. Now this is very dangerous right here with a TD. You do have to be careful. If he just simply went driving through that door, there's some tanks over there and some tanks over here, and he probably gets wiped out. So he does have to be careful to isolate the threat towards his front. But now he's got the big bully stick, this huge gun, and a large TD sitting here waiting for anyone to be foolish enough to push through. T-54 comes firing forward, and he kind of gives you an example, even though he has a turret, of what happens when you overextend into multiple lanes of crossfire. Come in here, bounce off the Foch, unfortunately right on that very sloped plate. The Foch armor is interesting. It can be very troll. At other times it can be very weak. And he's going to have some issues with the Foches here, which we'll discuss as we go. But that shot was pretty much right into its strongest piece of armor, and he's not firing his gold, which he doesn't necessarily need. Now, he's just working this. You can see that, unfortunately, the T-43 gets tracked and he's able to take him out. That's a nice job. You can see that a Casemate TD is relatively unwieldy. It is difficult to work up front, and that's why a lot of people don't like to do it. Now, I like this move, what Nonamanadus is doing here. He's been working this middle for quite some time, but he sees an opportunity on his right flank over here on the west side to come around and take out this Foch who's pressing on this Emil, who has managed to track this guy and is attempting to live. Now, this is a bummer because he shoots right into that weak spot and gets a critical no damage. Oh, that's a bummer right there. And it's not the last time he's going to have it happen. The nice thing about the JT is the gun hits hard, it's accurate, and it actually reloads pretty quickly. So this really is, other than its difficulty in maneuvering, because it's relatively slow and has a Casemate, everything else about it is pretty fantastic. And the armor is actually decent. Lower plate's big and weak, upper plate's quite strong. Now he's going to come around here on this T-29, and I would say I thought the T-29 knew he was there. Right there, I'd have gone for that sprocket instead of just shooting into the side. Now, the danger of doing that is if you shoot for the sprocket, there is some dead space, obviously, to the left of the sprocket, so you have a slightly higher chance of missing that shot. So he went dead center and put the shot right into the guy. It didn't hurt him because he ends up taking this guy down, and now he's not a factor. And if the T-29 had still had a repair kit, he'd have burned it and backed up. However, all else being equal, I usually try to go for the sprocket in that case. Nice job, just aim a little bit. The guy's not even looking at him, so he has some time to get that good shot in there, and he moves forward. Now, let's take a look at this, and I talk about this a lot. Right now I want you to look at the mini-map, look at the situation, and make your decision. You are Nonamanadus in this JT right now. Where do you go? Where do you go right now? Snap decision. Let's see what Nonamanadus does. See what he just did? He looked over there with his camera. Good camera work. I always like to look myself. I understand I can look at the mini-map and get an idea, but it's much better if you actually move your camera towards that and say, all right, what do we got over there? He uses that SA to come in. Now there's a bunch of guys stacked in there. Some of them are hurt, but not a great situation for his team, but he needs to do something about it. Nice shot right into the lower plate right there. This is an interesting move right here, and it's something that people in TDs do, and it's both good and bad. You can see that he is attempting to angle himself as good as possible with the Foch. However, what is the danger there? You can get tracked, and if you get tracked offline and you can't fix it and come back online, then you're in big trouble right there. You can tell that he still has his repair kit. So these are things to take into mind. He can angle. He knows if he happens to get tracked, ideally he doesn't take any damage as well, and he can fix it and come right back online. But I have seen people attempt to do this who didn't have a kit, get tracked, and all of a sudden they're basically out of the fight. He's able to actually bounce that, and the Foch is wiggling around and makes a bad move there. Very weak side armor on the Foch. That's actually being buffed in 920, and that's one of the reasons why, because it's easy to punch through the side of the Foch. The Foch. And he's going to push forward. So this is the decision I was talking about. Would you have pushed up with the other JT or go towards cap, or would you have gone back to your cap? And absolutely going back to your cap was the right decision right there. He's got lots of hit points. He's got a couple campers in the back. Now look at that Scorpion and Oods back there. What have they been doing the entire game? I didn't pay close attention to them. If you want to, go back through here and see what they did. But it's my guess that they were probably in that general area most of the time. I like this decision not to try to snap that. Why? Because if he takes that shot, then he gets rushed by both those clowns, and maybe he gets taken down if they get around to the side of him, can keep him tracked, things like that. His gun is still a threat, right? And maybe even he takes some hit points there, which is fine. He trades a little bit because he has some to give, and then he pushes up on them. They don't want to go at him because he still has the round in the gun. I'd have gone for the little hatch myself. The bar is flatter. He gets another crit, no damage, unfortunately. And nice angling once again on that. Forces the Foch to take a crap shot. And now the Foch says, you know, I got to charge him, but too late. And here comes the IS, which is a good decision on the IS. Now let's take a look at how Nonamanadus actually maneuvers his assault TD right here. Now we are in a 1v1 brawl with a tank that has a turret. And we know we probably only need one more shot on this guy. What we don't want to have happen is have him get on our side and, God forbid, shoot and track us, which we have a kit to fix, and that's good, and then potentially shoot and track us again, and we never get our gun back online and we get taken down, or some of his buddies show up. Unlikely in this case because they're kind of all up on that corner, but that is the danger of being surrounded or flanked in a tactical sense by an IS. Now watch what Nonamanadus does, because he's doing something very important right here. Very important. Okay, what was he doing there that's very important? He had two choices. He could have spun in place, which would have tracked his gun from left to right faster a little bit, or he could back up and turn at the same time. And because the IS was far enough away, backing and turning was the right answer here, because he preserves the distance between the two tanks. If he'd have just spun in place, it's quite likely the IS would have actually got past his gun and around him. By backing and turning, he keeps the gun online, and he's able to preserve enough space that he can get reloaded before the IS actually gets around him. And now it was a close one. We'll see how close it was. Quite close right there. But he ends up making it happen. The other thing he was doing is he was backing up, and he probably knew that all this rubble and a wall was right here. So he could back up against that wall if the IS had got around him, and use that to keep the IS from doing a full circle, and then eventually bullying himself in a turn, getting around on the IS and taking him out. So it was a good decision overall, both backing and turning, which preserved the room he needed to get his gun on by the time he reloaded, and follow on, if he didn't quite get there, he was able to outmaneuver hopefully the IS from there. And those are all important things to know while you are driving a casemate. Now you've got a IS-2 up on the cap, and he has 1 minute and 5 seconds which I've just given it away, but I want you to think about that for a minute. What is your priority right here? Which enemy tank is your priority at this point? Do you shoot the IS-2 because, oh my gosh, he's capping? Or do you shoot the Uds and the Comet? Think about that. We'll see what Nonamanadus does. Looks like he goes after the Uds and the Comet. Uds gets away, blasts the Comet, who's probably actually one of the more dangerous tanks right now to him. If that guy gets around behind him and starts spitting shells, he can perma-track and start wrecking him. So that guy's gone now. Nonamanadus' team is obviously winning by a lot right here, but he's still making solid targeting and movement decisions here. And now it's just awesome. Let's go just take free hit points from this IS-2. And who cares if this guy even shoots me at this point? There's no way he's going to out-DPM me. Nonamanadus actually moves right here. I'd have just sat there and zoomed in and taken him down, but that's all right. I don't even know if he gets another shot. Nope, guy's dead. The Uds ran off. He's trying to get around a Tiger P and a JT, which is not going to work for him. He's at 1%, and we end up dying. So, a great example, follow-up to my discussion with the 122-44. From the beginning, getting the gun into the game, reacting and flexing in a casemate TD near the front of the battle, actually getting around the enemy, helping to push through, bullying with your big gun, decent armor, and then something that people don't talk about a lot, and it is a small map, but even in a big slow tank like a JT, you can flex and come back and save your cap from getting capped. So all around, a really nice job by Nonamanadus. Good job, dude. Lots of stuff in there, as I've been discussing. A lot of things that kind of prove what I talk about quite a bit. I love the prioritization of the targets and everything about this game. So nicely done, dude. I hope you guys like what you saw. If you did, make sure you subscribe. Otherwise, as always, I will leave you with, we will see ya.